So I've built a ton of web projects like this one, and I've made some mistakes along the way. If I had to do it all over again, how would I do it? Hi, I'm Vishal. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft and I have 3 years of working experience. During my time at college and while working with Microsoft, I've built a ton of web projects. So in this video, I want to discuss a complete roadmap that will take you from an absolute beginner to a pro. In this video, we'll discuss components that you need to learn to become a web developer and how much time you need to allocate to each one of them. We'll discuss some projects idea at the very end of the video, and we'll also have discussion around some hidden gems. So make sure you watch till the end. And please do leave a like and comment on this video. That really helps the algorithm and makes my hours put in this video worth it. So without wasting any more time, let's get to it. If you're starting out web development, HTML and CSS are just something that you can't skip. I suggest spending 1 or 2 days to HTML and then moving on to CSS. Now CSS is a rabbit hole. You can spend 2 weeks onto it, 2 months on it, and even a year on it. It all depends on your goal. If your goal is to become an absolute designer, then you are aiming to create websites something like this. Now this can take you from 2 months to 4 months, but I don't suggest that because this is very early stage in your web development career and you have not experienced everything. Spending so much time at this point will make you deviate from your whole journey and you will be missing out on some things. So I suggest learning CSS until you can create something like this or something like this, and then moving past this stage, because this is the stage where you will be called an absolute beginner, and this is the stage where a lot of developers get stuck into. The next stage is going to be JavaScript. Now a lot of people confuse JavaScript and TypeScript and get overwhelmed. I don't want you to take TypeScript as a separate language, and I don't even want you to learn TypeScript at this point, because I think TypeScript is just JavaScript with type safety, and once you learn JavaScript, you can easily spend a day and two and you'll be able to learn TypeScript as well. In JavaScript, I have 2 routes, and I suggest spending 2 or 3 weeks in any of those routes. First route is front end first, which means that you spend 1 week learning JavaScript, the conditional statement like if and else, the for loops, and everything around that, and then building a project out of it. Now project idea, you can build a game out of it, you can build a static website out of it, and there is something good that I built recently, which was this terminal portfolio. This is just a terminal in web browser. So when you start this JavaScript, this is just a web page and it has all the commands that you can run. If you can mimic this, go ahead and mimic this. This is a public repository on my GitHub. You can take inspiration from here and try building this. I found this really cool, so a project idea for you. Now if you are going from the front end route, then this is the way. And if you're going for the back end route, then I suggest learning JavaScript for 1 week and then practice it by building a backend server using JavaScript. Now I'll discuss both of these routes in detail now, but at this stage you still won't be able to find any jobs because the market is so tough that this is just the bare minimum that you need to know. Now we'll dive into the front end or back end route. These 2 routes, you can pick any of them first. I generally prefer picking up the back end because I have the basic understanding of what my website will be built on top of. So I suggest going by the back end route, but you can for sure use front end as well. So let's go over the backend first. Now in backend, there is a popular term known as MERN, which is an acronym for Mongo, Express, React, and Node.js. There is so much hype around MERN. There are other flavors as well, which is mean, I think, which is with Angular. But the way I want to divide backend is by these 3 important things, which is routing, database, and services. So for any backend server, you'll have to create a route. Route basically means any endpoint, let's say /login, /authenticate. Anything will be handled by routing. Now Express is one thing that handles this, hence the E in MERN. There are other flavors as well, like if you use Python, you can use Django for this, but all this I don't want to cover here because that will make a mess in your head. So if you want a video on roadmap in Python, please comment down below and I'll create a video in that as well. But here I'm using MERN stack as an example. So here you need to create routing. No matter which language you choose, Java will be Spring Boot, and there are other ways to implement that in every language, but the core concept remains that you need to learn routing. Then you need to incorporate some database, which will be like either MongoDB or SQL. I suggest going with MongoDB because it is easier and you won't be stuck into the complications of a database while learning how to integrate the database. Right now you want to learn how to integrate stuff in your web app. Later on you can expand it. It's a forever journey, but right now you want to learn how to integrate. So I suggest going with MongoDB. And for services is basically when you create a route, you want to contact some external APIs. So that is just services. So you create a service, you create an external API. Let's say if you want to do authentication, you are contacting the Google API. So that is what services is. So you might want to write those services sometimes in a backend server. So I generally focus on these three components and learning these 3 components. If you pick up a project in which you have all these 3 concepts, I consider you a backend developer. Now let's move on to front end part. So that will be backend for now. But in front end, this is the most important thing that you should focus on, which is DOM. DOM is basically how a website and the components of website are displayed in the browser. So I want you to spend a good amount of time, let's say 2 weeks or 3 weeks on learning this DOM. Now, this can involve a project as well if you want, but I think when you are learning React, the DOM manipulation will always happen there. So you can learn it then as well, but I need you to know the concept. There are certain websites like MDM Notes, which is Mozilla Notes, or there is one other website which is named by Free Code Camp, which gives you tutorial on YouTube, but also text on their website where you can learn web development basics, CSS and JavaScript and DOM manipulation, etc. Then after you have learned DOM, I want you to move to React. Now there are a lot of debates in React, whether to learn Next.js or whether to just learn React with Vue.js. It's all up to you. You can decide on your own. I'll just give you the information here. So React is basically you learning the front end part of how to render different DOM components and how to make a dynamic website. Now Next.js is confused a lot of times by flavor of React. It is not. Next.js is where you can build your front end and back end both. So Next.js is a complete solution on its own. You can for sure use Next.js to learn the front end part of it. Just make sure that you implement backend on a different server using Node. Now, once you have learned all of this, then you can call yourself a full stack developer, and this will be the whole bracket of it. I hope I haven't missed anything, but this is where you will be able to get employed. Although it's a learning process, you need to learn frameworks for CSS whenever you require to, such as Tailwind, and there are other flavors as well. You need to learn how to incorporate Tailwind components. There are different open source libraries for UI components. You need to know how to incorporate those. In backend, maybe you want to move to SQL, understand Postgres. Those are all the learning part of process, but this is where you'll be known as a full stack developer, and this is where your beginning happens. There are some other additional things that you can learn. With the current market, Gen AI is one of that popping up field where every developer is expected to know how to apply AI into the project. So using vector embedding to create a chatbot or something with Gen AI is something that will give you a huge edge in your career. So that is one project idea that I can give you. The second project idea that I can give you is creating a basic blog application. There is a reason why everybody creates a blog application, because in that application, you interact with MongoDB APIs. So that means you are interacting with an external API. You are writing your own APIs to create a blog, etc. So that is you implementing your API. But that is the overall crux of backend development. Either you are contacting an external API or you are creating your own APIs. Blog application, if you want a simple one, or if you want a bit complicated or a different new idea for blog application and that's just too cliche for you, then you can create an attendance marking application, incorporate with MongoDB database so that your information is always stored on the database. Attendance marking example, for a user will log in, he will add a subject and he can add if he went to class today or not. If he went to the class, his total attendance will be increased by 1, and then his total days he had to attend will be increased by 1. If he didn't go, then the total attendance will not increase, but number of days will increase. That way he can always monitor percentage of his attendance in the class. So that is another project idea which is not so common, and the interviewers might like it because they could relate to it. And one other field that I want to give honorable mention is that if you create any full stack project to learn your web development, try to deploy it. That gives you a big edge on your resume if you have a deployed website. I created this website, I deployed it as soon as possible. You also can afford some free deployment suite. If you can, then just deploy the website. Deployment can include DevOps pipelines like GitHub Actions, although I don't expect you to dive into them. If you get time, then you can learn it. This is optional. And Kubernetes, this is a whole rabbit hole out there for Kubernetes, but this is asked in a lot of full stack companies that you understand your Kubernetes as well. So if you have time, please do spend some time on Kubernetes as well. This will give you a big edge. So that's all that I have for a complete roadmap of web development without any bullshit, just the basics of it. And just another side note, it's a learning process. Make sure that you keep expanding your knowledge as you go. Even I am learning till today, and you would too, until and unless you want to retire. So that's all for this video. See you in the next one.